After a wild night out, my ex whispered, "I knew you couldn't stay away from me." I said, "This was a mistake." He replied, "Then why did you come back to my place?" My best friend noticed my late-night disappearances and asked, "Are you hiding something from me?" I knew my secret affair would eventually be discovered. I don't even know how to start this. My hands are shaking as I type this out, and I already know I'm going to be judged. I deserve it. But I need to get this off my chest because the guilt is eating me alive, and I have no one to talk to. So, here goes nothing. I did something really, really stupid. And the worst part? I knew it was stupid while I was doing it. I knew exactly how it was going to end. I knew the regret was going to hit me like a truck the second it was over. But that didn't stop me. It started with a night out. It wasn't supposed to be anything wild. Just a few drinks with my best friend, Sarah. We were in Miami for the weekend, just a girls' trip to relax and unwind. I had been stressed out of my mind with work, life, everything. Sarah knew I needed this. We were bar hopping down Ocean Drive, laughing, taking stupid selfies, and just existing without worrying about real life for once. It felt good. It felt normal. Then I saw him. Nick. My ex. He was standing at the bar, laughing with some guys I didn't recognize. Same cocky smile, same way he ran a hand through his hair when he was talking, same way he held his drink like he owned the place. It was like my brain short-circuited. Sarah saw him too. Her face changed instantly. She grabbed my arm and leaned in. "Let's go. We don't need this tonight." She was right. She was so right. But instead of turning away, I just froze. Nick's eyes flicked toward me. I swear to God, it was like he felt me looking at him. And then he smirked. That stupid, self-assured smirk that always used to drive me insane. The one that said, "I already know you're going to do exactly what I want." And just like that, the night changed. I told myself I wouldn't go over there. I told myself it was just a coincidence. I told myself I'd ignore him. Spoiler, I did none of those things. One drink turned into two. Two turned into three. And suddenly, I was right back where I told myself I'd never be. He was so easy to talk to. That was the problem. We had history. Years of it. The kind of history that doesn't just go away, no matter how much you try to erase it. And I tried. I really, really tried. I left him for a reason. Nick was the kind of guy who could make you feel like the only person in the world 1 second, and like an afterthought the next. He played games. He knew how to keep people hooked. And I fell for it, again and again, until I finally found the strength to walk away. But sitting across from him, with alcohol making everything a little too blurry, it was so easy to forget all the bad. We laughed. We talked. We reminisced. And before I knew it, I was in his car. Before I knew it, I was back at his place. The second the door shut behind us, he turned to me, leaning in just enough to make my breath catch. "I knew you couldn't stay away from me." My stomach twisted. Not in a good way. This was wrong. This was a mistake, I whispered. He didn't even flinch. He just tilted his head, eyes dark and amused. "Then why did you come back to my place?" I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense, anyway. But it didn't matter, because the next thing I knew, his lips were on mine, and every single reason I had for leaving him evaporated. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't anything a sane person would want. It was reckless. It was stupid. And the second it was over, the guilt hit me so hard I thought I was going to be sick. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the worst human being on the planet. Because I wasn't single. I had him. Chris. The man who actually deserved my love. The man who had spent the last 3 years proving to me that I was worth something. The man who trusted me. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to grab my stuff and run, but my body wouldn't move. Nick reached over, trailing his fingers down my arm, his voice soft. "You don't have to leave." I didn't respond. I just got up, got dressed, and walked out without another word. The Uber ride back to the hotel was the longest 15 minutes of my life. I crept into the room like a criminal, barely breathing as I slipped under the covers. Sarah was already asleep. Or so I thought. The second I settled in, she rolled over, voice groggy but sharp. "Where the hell were you?" My heart stopped. She wasn't stupid. She knew. I could hear it in her voice, the suspicion. The disappointment. I swallowed hard. Nowhere. Just went for a walk. Silence. Then, Are you hiding something from me? I could barely breathe. I don't know why I thought I could lie to Sarah. She had known me since college. She knew when I was lying. But I wasn't ready to admit what I'd done. Not to her. Not to myself. So I just turned away, pretending to be too tired to keep talking. Sarah sighed. I hope you know what you're doing. I didn't. Not even a little bit. And the worst part? This wasn't the first time. The guilt didn't hit all at once. It crept in, slow and steady, like a leak in the ceiling you don't notice until the water starts pouring through. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Chris's face. I saw the way he smiled at me when he cooked breakfast, the way he pulled me closer in his sleep, the way he trusted me without question. And I saw Nick's smirk. Smug. Knowing. Like he already expected this to happen. By the time the sun came up, my stomach was in knots. I felt sick. I needed to fix this. But I didn't even know where to start. Chris texted me that morning. Chris, hope you're having fun, baby. Can't wait to see you. I stared at the screen, fingers shaking. I didn't deserve him. I never had. I typed out a response. Miss you. Can't wait to come home. I hovered over the send button. And then, before I could talk myself out of it, I deleted the text. Because suddenly, it felt wrong to say it. It felt like a lie. Sarah didn't say anything about my late-night disappearance that morning, but the tension was there. I could feel it in the way she barely looked at me. The way she kept the conversation light, too light, like she was afraid that if she pushed, I'd break apart. But she didn't have to say anything. Because later that night, she cornered me. We were at a rooftop bar, the city lights glowing behind us. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, but I wasn't really there. My mind was somewhere else. Sarah wasn't drinking. She was watching me. Then, finally, you cheated, didn't you? I felt my stomach drop. The words were too direct. Too sharp. Like a knife straight to my ribs. I could have lied. I should have lied. But I didn't. I just stared at her, throat tight. Her face twisted. Oh my God. You did. I looked down at my drink, gripping the glass so hard I thought it might crack. It was a mistake. Sarah let out a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, no kidding. She shook her head, rubbing her temples like she was trying to process what kind of idiot I was. Chris worships you. I flinched. I knew that. Tell me it was a one-time thing. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. I couldn't say it. Because it wasn't. Sarah's eyes widened. You've done this before? I exhaled, shaky. But before I could say anything, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. Nick. Sarah followed my gaze. Her expression darkened. She reached over and snatched the phone before I could stop her. Are you serious? She hissed. I tried to grab it back. Give it to me. She yanked her hand away, gripping the phone like she was about to throw it off the damn rooftop. Tell me this isn't still happening. I didn't say anything. Because what the hell was I supposed to say? Sarah stared at me like she didn't even know who I was anymore. You need to tell Chris. My stomach flipped. No, yes. Sarah, please. Her jaw clenched. If you don't, I will. The second we got back to the hotel, I locked myself in the bathroom. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. I looked like shit. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. What the hell was I doing? How did I let it get this far? I took out my phone. Nick's name was still on my screen. I hesitated. Then I opened the text. Nick, had fun last night. You coming over later? Winking face, I closed my eyes. Then I did something really, really stupid. I texted back. Me, I can't keep doing this. It was true. But not even 2 seconds later, he responded. Nick, yeah. So why haven't you stopped? My breath hitched. Because he was right. I hadn't stopped. I should have blocked him. I should have ended this. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for him to text again. Like an idiot. The next morning, Sarah was gone. Her suitcase. Her shoes. Everything. Just gone. Panic shot through me. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding. Me, where are you? Nothing. Me, Sarah, please answer me. Still nothing. Then, finally, my phone buzzed. Sarah, I can't watch you ruin your life. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. She was done. With me. And maybe she should have been. Because I was officially alone in this. And the worst part? I wasn't sure if I even wanted to stop. I should have left it alone. I should have taken Sarah's warning seriously. But the problem with mistakes is that once you make one, it's too easy to make another. And another. And before you know it, you're in too deep to climb out. I didn't block Nick. I didn't confess to Chris. And I definitely didn't stop. Instead, I made the worst decision yet. I went back to him. It wasn't supposed to happen. I told myself I was done. That I'd leave Miami, go home, and pretend this weekend never happened. But the second night after Sarah left, I found myself outside Nick's apartment. It was past midnight. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might throw up. I shouldn't have been there. I wasn't even drunk. I couldn't blame the alcohol this time. I just stood there, staring at his door, every muscle in my body screaming at me to turn around. Then the door swung open. And there he was. Smirking. Like he knew I was coming. Like he had been waiting. Took you long enough. I didn't say anything. Because what the hell was I supposed to say? I walked inside. And that was my final mistake. When I woke up the next morning, Nick was already awake, leaning against the headboard with his phone in hand. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting long stripes across his bare chest. You need to check your phone. His voice was calm. Too calm. My stomach dropped. I scrambled up, grabbing my phone from the nightstand. And the second I unlocked it, I felt cold all over. Missed calls. Texts. From Chris. From Sarah. And then, one text that nearly made me drop the phone. Chris, what the hell is this? Attached was a photo. Of me. At Nick's place. Walking inside. The timestamp was from last night. My heart stopped. No. No, no, no. My breath came fast and shaky. I scrolled frantically, hoping, praying, that there was some kind of mistake. But there it was. Another text. Sarah, I tried to warn you. My entire body was shaking. I turned to Nick, voice barely a whisper. Who took this? His expression was unreadable. Does it matter? My stomach twisted. Nick. He exhaled, dragging a hand through his hair. I didn't send it, if that's what you're asking. I didn't believe him. But I couldn't focus on that right now. I had to fix this. I had to talk to Chris before everything fell apart. I threw my clothes on in a blur, my hands trembling so badly I could barely zip up my jeans. Nick didn't stop me. He just watched. You gonna tell him the truth? I swallowed hard. I don't know. He smirked. Yeah, you do. I didn't respond. I just ran out the door. The Uber ride to the hotel felt like a death march. Chris wasn't answering his phone. Sarah wasn't answering either. I was alone in this. By the time I got back, my keycard wouldn't work. My stomach sank. Chris had locked me out. I knocked. Then pounded. Chris, please. No answer. I backed away, pulse hammering in my ears. I had to find him. I raced down to the lobby, scanning the crowd. And then I saw him. Sitting at the bar. Drink in hand. And next to him, a woman. Blonde. Stunning. Laughing at something he said. My breath caught in my throat. Chris never drank like this. And he sure as hell never flirted with random women at bars. Unless he was trying to hurt me. And maybe he should. Because I deserved it. I approached slowly, legs shaking. Chris. His shoulders stiffened. Then he turned, slowly, eyes cold. I had never seen him look at me like that before. So now you want to talk? The woman looked between us, sensing the tension. She muttered something to Chris and slipped away. He downed his drink. Let me guess. You're gonna say it wasn't what it looked like? I swallowed. Chris, how long? His voice was quiet, but the anger was there, boiling just under the surface. I hesitated. He laughed bitterly. Wow. You can't even say it, can you? Tears burned behind my eyes. It didn't mean anything. His jaw clenched. So that makes it better? It was a mistake. No, a mistake is forgetting to turn off the stove. A mistake is missing an appointment. What you did? He leaned in, eyes dark. That was a choice. I wanted to beg. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg for him to forgive me. But what could I even say? Chris stood up, tossing a few bills on the bar. Then he turned to me one last time. You lost me. And then he walked away. Leaving me standing there. Alone. With nothing. I stood there in the middle of the hotel bar, watching Chris disappear into the crowd, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from under me. This was it. This was the moment I had been dreading since the second I let Nick back in. And I had no one to blame but myself. But it wasn't over yet. Not even close. I didn't go after Chris. There was no point. He had made himself clear. So I did the only thing I could do. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. She didn't answer. I called again. And again. Voicemail. She was done with me too. I barely remember getting back to the room. The next few hours were a blur. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands, trying to convince myself this wasn't real. That there was still a way to fix this. But deep down, I knew the truth. Some mistakes can't be undone. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed. Nick. Nick, you alright? I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. I wanted to scream at him, blame him for everything. But this wasn't his fault. It was mine. And for some reason, even after everything, part of me still wanted to see him. Maybe because if I was with Nick, I didn't have to think about the wreckage I had left behind. So like an idiot, I texted back. Me, come over. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there he was. Casual. Confident. Like none of this was a big deal. Like he hadn't just ruined my life. Or maybe, like he had planned this all along. I let him in. He leaned against the dresser, arms crossed. So, what's the plan? I blinked. What? He smirked. Chris is out of the picture, yeah? So what now? You running back home to cry, or are you staying? My stomach twisted. There was something about the way he said it. Like he was too sure of himself. Like he knew this was how things would end. And that's when it hit me. You sent the photo, didn't you? The words came out before I could stop them. Nick didn't even look surprised. He just tilted his head. Why would I do that? My pulse pounded. Because you wanted this to happen. Nick exhaled, shaking his head. Come on, don't be dramatic. You knew this was gonna blow up eventually. I took a step back. Oh my God. Nick didn't deny it. Didn't need to. Because I suddenly saw it, all of it. He had never changed. He never wanted to rekindle anything. He just wanted to win. To prove that he still had me wrapped around his finger. And when he realized I wasn't going to leave Chris for him, he made sure that choice wasn't mine to make. He wanted to destroy me. And I let him. Tears burned behind my eyes. Nick sighed. Oh, don't look at me like that. My hands shook. Get out. His smirk faltered. What? Get out. He scoffed, pushing off the dresser. You're really gonna act like this is all on me? I snapped. You sent the picture. You set me up. His expression hardened. No, you set yourself up the second you showed up at my place. I opened my mouth, then stopped. Because he was right. I had done this. I let it happen. I was just too stupid to see it. Nick grabbed his jacket and shook his head. You know, I don't even feel bad for you. You made your choice. And then he walked out. Just like Chris. Leaving me standing there. Alone. Again. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the door, feeling the weight of everything hit me all at once. I had no one left. No Chris. No Sarah. Not even Nick. I had burned it all down. And for what? A night of nostalgia? A temporary distraction? It wasn't worth it. None of it was. I flew home the next day. Chris wasn't at the apartment. I didn't expect him to be. His stuff was still there, but his ring, the one he always wore, the one he never took off, was sitting on the counter. A message. He was done. And I didn't blame him. Sarah texted me a week later. Just one line. Sarah, hope it was worth it. It wasn't. I thought about reaching out to Chris. I typed out messages 100 times. But I never sent them. Because what was I supposed to say? That I was sorry? That I regretted it? He already knew that. Regret doesn't erase betrayal. Nothing does. It's been 6 months now. Chris hasn't spoken to me since. Sarah moved on too. And Nick? I don't know. I blocked his number. Deleted everything. Because I finally saw him for who he really was. And more importantly, I finally saw myself for what I had become. And I hated it. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that cheating doesn't just destroy relationships, it destroys people. I lost everyone because of one stupid, selfish decision. And the worst part? I don't know if I'll ever get them back.